So I was looking at something on PubMed, and I saw something that described acute care anesthesiologist. Underneath it was the responsibilities of trauma airways, critical care airways, and airways in the emergency room. And I'm like, is there a role for a person to do these things, or just to be the backup? I'm not an anesthesiologist. I know every patient that's in that trauma room is my patient. I should be in charge of the airway and know when I fail, when to ask for help. I know that a lot of my patients that are critically ill and wind up going to critical care or needing a bed, but the bed is still waiting to be cleaned, or the bed is not available, winds up in our holding area. In that holding area, or in my resuscitation room, I'm in charge of the airway. And if I need help, I will ask for it. And then, am I not the one intubating the patient who may not be yet being consulted for critical care, but emergently, I am in charge of the airway. So, it's just an interesting concept of writing down acute care anesthesiologist, who I always thought was the guy who's on call, who I would call if I needed help, and should be available. So it's just an interesting concept. Maybe because I pride myself in being a resuscitationist, I by default am the intubator, not the anesthesiologist in trauma, and the patients who are getting critical care immediately and somewhat long term, and those who are in my emergency room. So it's just a weird concept of saying acute care anesthesiologist, unless they work with only acute care surgeons. But I know in my shop, I'm in charge of the intubations for the traumas, critical care, and emergency medicine patients. Just a unique concept. Maybe the role is necessary for people who don't practice and keep their skills sharp in the sim lab, or in the OR, or in a cadaver lab. But I'd like to pride myself as being the intubator for those in trauma, critical care, and those in the emergency room. I hope this resonates with other people, that you shouldn't be always calling for help if your skills are that bad. And I guess if your skills are that bad, you recognize them and not overconfident. But wow, crying wolf when you should be already prepared and taking care of your sheep. You should be getting your skills up to par and not always be calling anesthesia, because the anesthesia is not always available. You should be available for the trauma, critical care, emergency care patient, for intubations, event management, at least initially. Okay? So it's just an interesting concept of hearing what an acute care anesthesiologist is, who's your backup in the ED for all traumas, and in the critical care area in your ED. For those who don't believe, those are starting to form, like it or not. Alright? Emergency room critical care areas. So, just an opinion, just a thought. Dr. Torres' thought on the School of Airway. Thank you.